Hey, remember that time I tried to convince my buddy to splurge on a new laptop for his streaming plus gaming setup, and he almost went for a half-price deal that ended up being a nightmare? I was sitting there, watching him wrestle with a cheap 15-inch notebook that choked the moment he opened a single OBS window. It got me thinking about all the what-ifs people have when they're about to drop serious cash on a gaming laptop. If you're on the fence about the ASUS ROG Strix G18, this is the kind of rundown you need before you hit that checkout button. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest question most of us ask is whether the giant 18-inch screen is a blessing or a curse for daily life. At 2.5K resolution, it's gorgeous. Every texture in a game feels crisp, and the 240Hz refresh rate really shines when you're playing fast-paced shooters. But that same size makes the laptop a bit unwieldy on cramped desks or in a coffee shop. I've been using the Strix G18 on a standard office desk with a modest keyboard tray, and the chassis just slides out a little too far for me to comfortably type for more than an hour without adjusting the arm. If you plan to carry it around a lot, think about whether you want a machine that rivals a desktop monitor in size. Now, let's talk about the heart of the beast, the AMD Ryzen 9 9955HX paired with the NVIDIA RTX 5070. In practice, this combo handles anything you throw at it. I ran a few nights of Elden Ring at ultra settings, and the frame rate stayed solidly above 90 frames per second, even when I threw in a 30-minute raid with 30 players. The RTX 5070's ray tracing cores made the lighting in Cyberpunk 2077 pop without the dreaded stutter you see on lower-tier GPUs. What matters more than raw numbers is how the laptop stays cool while delivering that performance. The Strix G18 uses a dual-fan system that, under load, will get a little noisy. You'll hear a faint whirring that's comparable to a small refrigerator. In a quiet room, that's a minor distraction, but if you need a perfectly silent environment for voiceover work, you might want to invest in a good external mic with a pop filter to drown out the fan noise. Storage and memory are where this machine really earns its keep. The 1TB PCIe SSD is lightning fast, meaning Windows boots in under a minute and games load in the time it takes you to pick up your controller. The 32GB of DDR5 RAM means you can keep a handful of games, streaming software, and a couple of design apps open without the system swapping to the page file. I tried running Photoshop, Lightroom, and a game at the same time. The transition was seamless, and there was no lag when switching between apps. That said, the SSD is not user-replaceable without opening the chassis, which ASUS doesn't make as easy as on some competitors. If you think you'll need more than a terabyte down the line, consider buying an external NVMe enclosure now, because upgrading internally could become a hassle. Battery life is a realistic concern for anyone who doesn't want to be chained to an outlet. The G18 houses a 97Wh battery, which sounds huge, but with the high refresh display and the RTX 5070 drawing power, you'll be looking at around 3 to 4 hours of mixed use, maybe an hour of intensive gaming, then a couple of hours of browsing or streaming. That's in line with other 18-inch gaming laptops, but it's still a limitation if you expect to game on a plane or in a cafe without plug-in access. The laptop does support fast charging, so a 30-minute plug can get you back to 50% quickly, which eases the anxiety a bit. One area where the Strix G18 stands out is the keyboard. The 4-zone RGB isn't just for show, each zone can be programmed independently, which is handy if you use macro profiles for different games. The keys have a satisfying actuation feel, almost like a mechanical board, and the key travel is generous enough to keep your fingers from fatigue during marathon sessions. However, the keyboard layout is slightly shifted to accommodate the larger screen, meaning the function keys sit a tad higher than on a 15-inch laptop. If you're used to the standard placement, there will be a short adjustment period. Connectivity is where the laptop feels modern. You get an HDMI 2.1 port that can push 4K at 120Hz to an external monitor, perfect if you want to dock at home and still keep the high refresh rate for competitive play. There are two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-A ports for your peripherals and a 3.5mm combo jack for headphones. I found the USB-C port missing, which some rivals include for Thunderbolt accessories. If you rely on Thunderbolt for external GPUs or fast SSDs, you'll need an adapter, which adds cost and another point of failure. Who should buy the Strix G18? If you're a serious gamer who also dabbles in content creation, video editing, or runs multiple demanding